Hello, Bleacher Report listeners. My name is James Hill. Welcome back to yet another live stream here on the Bleacher Report app. How's everybody doing today? Happy New Year to everybody watching this live stream today as well. It was a great 2023 covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the Bleacher Report app, doing all the different types of live streams here. And now we're going to have a great 2024 talking again about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and really just all sports here on the Bleacher Report app. And speaking of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, today's topic is one that is definitely not the most positive one in the world because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost in week number 17 to the New Orleans Saints. It was not a pretty game for sure. The Buccaneers lost 23-13 against the Saints in a game where, point blank simple as this, folks, they didn't show up at all. I mean, the defense, the offense, special teams even, things were not great for the Bucs. And firstly, just to kind of go over this game real quick before talking about the implications of this loss for the Bucs. Baker Mayfield, yes, while it does look like he did have a decent stat line in the end with 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, a rating of 91.6. A lot of that time came in the final, a lot of those stats, I guess I should say, came in the final 8 to 5 minutes of the game. Before that, it was not a great game for Baker Mayfield. It was not a great game for the offense. You had the 2 interceptions. Rachaad White lost a fumble. Trey Palmer lost a fumble in what could have been a very crucial game later on in the matchup. And overall, just the Bucs didn't get it done. You didn't have any splash plays from the defense. Even the punting was off for Jake Camarda. You look at the time of possession, the Saints won that. Yes, the Bucs got the more total yards in the end, but again, a lot of that came towards the end of the matchup. In first downs, the Saints won. In terms of turnovers, the Saints dominated the turnover battle. Baker Mayfield was harassed throughout most of the game in terms of total plays. The Saints won that as well. It just wasn't a close matchup. The Bucs tried to make it interesting towards the end, but it was really too little, too late, all things considered. It was a little too little, too late in the end. So what did this game mean? Well, if the Saints had lost this game, they would have been eliminated from the playoffs. If the Bucs won this game, they would have gotten into the playoffs. They would have won the NFC South. They would have clinched the NFC South title. And I think Todd Bowles said it best whenever he had his quote after the game. And I do want to highlight this because it was a pretty notable quote. As you guys can see in the gray highlighted bit here, it didn't matter who we played today. A good team, a bad team, a college team, a high school team, we wouldn't have won today. And yeah, that seems to be pretty accurate. The Bucs just didn't show up. And I think that, a lot of people have a hand in that, the coaching staff, the players themselves. It was just a situation where the Bucs just didn't show up to play, with obviously their season not being on the line, but this still being an incredibly important game because you win, you're in type of scenario. The Bucs weren't able to rise to the occasion. And now what we're going to talk about today is the scenario the Bucs find themselves in going forward into next week versus the Carolina Panthers, because now you're in a scenario where if the Bucs win, they're in. That's still the same. But if the Bucs lose, they're eliminated from playoff contention. Simple as that. It doesn't matter if, one team beats the other or another team beats the other. It doesn't matter. If the Bucs lose, they're eliminated. Their only path to the playoffs is to win the NFC South. And next week, and I do want to take a look at this, we're going to take a look at the schedule here. Yes, they play the Carolina Panthers. Yes, that is their next game. So we'll talk about that game a little bit here in this live stream today. Yes, the Bucs are still number 1 in the NFC South, as you guys can see over here on your right-hand side. Yes, the Bucs are still number 1, but if you look there, New Orleans and Atlanta are right behind the Bucs. New Orleans at 8-8, Atlanta at 7-9. Here's the thing. Atlanta and New Orleans play each other next week, which is the most, I wouldn't even say it's unlucky, but it is the most NFC South thing to happen this year, is that New Orleans and Atlanta would play each other to end the season. Here's what happens. If the Bucs lose to the Carolina Panthers, whoever wins that New Orleans or Atlanta game makes the playoffs. Be it New Orleans, they go to 9-8, they make the playoffs. Be it Atlanta, they go to 8-9, they have the tiebreakers above Tampa and New Orleans at that point. They go to the playoffs. So that's it. There's really no other scenario, so to speak. Green Bay, I believe they've already got a playoff spot locked up, so they're in. The Rams, they're in as well. They have secured that other wild card spot. A lot of people may say, well, what about the third wild card spot? It's going to be going to either Philadelphia or Dallas. So the three wild cards are essentially locked in, right? They're essentially locked in. And the Bucs find themselves with the only path to the playoffs being now to win the NFC South. They have to win next week. They have to, or they're out. That's as easy as it gets, folks, because if New Orleans or Atlanta win, they're in if Tampa Bay loses. So there's obviously a lot riding on this game. I don't think I have to tell you guys that. This is now the now or never situation that the Bucs find themselves in because they did not win against the Saints. And it's going to be an interesting ride. It's going to be an interesting scenario to play out because the implications, not just for playoffs, but for potentially what happens if the Bucs do or don't make the playoffs is massive, right? And people are going to say, hey, it's the Carolina Panthers. It's at Carolina. Folks, division rivalry games are always tough. Look at what just happened with the New Orleans Saints. A lot of people thought the Bucs were going to beat the Saints. Didn't happen. Division rivals always play their divisional opponents tougher. Carolina's going to be no different. Carolina's going to want to eliminate the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from the playoffs. Carolina's going to want to end the year on a good note, start off the new year right, and get a win. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a pretty competitive matchup. It's going to be one where it's not going to be an easy, the Bucs got it, the Bucs are going to the playoffs. No, it's going to be a scrap, in my opinion. And I think it is certainly going to be a ball game. So that's kind of the scenario there. But let's talk about what happens if the Bucs win. Yes, if the Bucs win, the Bucs make the playoffs. But even more so than that, I think personally, you're talking about keeping Todd Bowles as the head coach, even if the wild card game does not go the way people think it is going to go. Let's say the Bucs make the playoffs and they lose, maybe even an ugly loss against the Cowboys, against the Philadelphia Eagles. I still think that would be enough for Todd Bowles to keep his job. Firstly, talking about the head coaching position. You had the 4-game win streak to get you out of the cellar of 4-7, to put you in a place to where you win and you're in for the playoffs. That builds up a lot of goodwill, in my opinion. You had 4 strong wins against, the Carolina Panthers, Atlanta Falcons, division rival games, then the Green Bay Packers and Jacksonville Jaguars, both teams who are essentially playoff teams at this point, by the way. Yes, you lose against the New Orleans Saints, but you have the ability to rebound. You have the ability to come back and still make the playoffs with a win against the Carolina Panthers. I think at that point, if you do make the playoffs in that scenario, even if it's a bit of an ugly loss, obviously the best case scenario is that you win the playoffs or you showcase that you're competitive. I still think Todd Bowles has the security to keep his job at that point. If he does make the playoffs for a second year in a row, he secures an NFC South title for the second year in a row. That's a pretty good look for Bowles. That really is. And I think that would be something that would be keeping him around. Baker Mayfield, what happens then? A guy that leads you to the playoffs in his first year with the team on only making around $4 to $8 million on the season. Pretty good look for a quarterback. And we've talked about Baker a lot this year. He has 28 touchdowns to 10 interceptions this year, 3,907 yards. If he is healthy throughout the Carolina Panthers game, he should finish with 4,000 yards and at least 28 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. If he gets a couple of touchdowns, 30 touchdowns, 10 picks, even 30 touchdowns, 11 picks, that's a great year for your quarterback. It really is. But it would be even more so the fact that he's leading a team to a playoffs in his first year, possibly winning a playoff game, possibly being competitive in the playoffs as well. That gives a lot of fuel to re-sign a guy like Baker to be your quarterback for the next couple of seasons. If you do win and you do make the playoffs against the Carolina Panthers and you are able to go in there and possibly make some noise in the playoffs as well. That is if the Bucs win against the Panthers, what rides on that game. Now, if the Bucs lose, things could get interesting, right? Things could get pretty interesting. I am not going to say that Todd Bowles would be fired 100% without a shadow of a doubt if the Bucs lose to the Carolina Panthers. I'm not going to say that because I think, one, that 4-game win streak, I talk about that building up a lot of good momentum for Todd Bowles. That very well may be a big thing that helps the Bucs obviously stay competitive down the stretch, of course, to where we are in the situation that we're in now. The Buccaneers are, that is. But also does, I think, a lot of goodwill in terms of Bowles keeping his job. And whenever you think about the expectations of where this team was, you got to remember a lot of national people thought the Bucs were going to win 3, 4, 5 games this year under Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield. Then the decision may have been a lot easier. But 8 and 9, bringing in a quarterback on his first year with the team, bringing in a new offensive coordinator with his first year of the team, you have missing your starting center, missing your strong number 3 wide receiver, not having as much talent as you had even last year, so to say, obviously because Tom Brady isn't here, and of course missing a lot of talent from the 2021 season. I think that there's a chance that 8 and 9 would still be, even if you don't make the playoffs, there's still a chance they keep Todd Bowles around. That's kind of the mindset I'm in right now. I think that the Glazers and I think that the Buccaneers organization still consider this year a success, all things considered. Whenever you had, what was it, $50 million, something along those lines in dead money in this past offseason, you can argue that the Bucs may just be a couple of pieces away. You get a pass rusher in, you maybe get a new center in, move Hainsey over to guard, you get a new defensive lineman in, you just get some help on both sides of the football. Maybe you do still bring back Baker Mayfield. We'll talk about that in a moment. And you can be competitive next year. That may be the legitimate argument to be made there. And you could still see a scenario. I could still see a scenario, I guess I should say, where Todd Bowles sticks around. But it obviously becomes a whole heck of a lot less of a guarantee if you lose against the Panthers versus winning against the Panthers. I think if you win against the Panthers, I don't think there's a doubt about it. I think Todd Bowles comes back if he makes the playoffs. If you lose, it's a little bit more of a question at that point. I would probably put it at 50-50 would be my guess. I still think that Bowles has done some good things this year based on where expectations were. And I do want to say that based on where he was at 4-7, we were talking about this on the Bleacher Report streams, a month and a half ago, where we were questioning, I was questioning Todd Bowles on his job security. And at that point, it was very legitimate. He rebounded all the way back to an 8-8 record with a chance to make the playoffs in week 18. That's definitely says something, that this team wants to play for this coach, that this team can win some football games under Bowles. So I don't think it's as cut and dry of if the Bucs lose in week 18, Todd Bowles is gone. I think it's more likely, but I don't think it's a guarantee. Also, you take a look at Baker Mayfield. What happens if the Bucs lose in Carolina and Baker doesn't make the playoffs? I still think there's a decent chance that he is brought back. But again, much like the case of Bowles, would he stay or would he go? It becomes a bit more of a question mark there, right? Because yes, Baker has shown really good ability. Baker has shown that he can win you some football games. But it's a big difference between a guy, a quarterback and a coach that can and did lead you to the playoffs and then fell apart the final 2 weeks. You had to win 1 out of 2 games to get in, and you didn't do it. That's a big difference there. I think a lot of people would agree with that. So what it means if you win is that a lot of people are probably keeping their jobs. Bowles, Baker, they're back very likely, in my opinion. And I think that would be the right move. If they lose, I don't think it's a guarantee that these guys are gone and the Bucs are just going to restart fresh with a new head coach, new quarterback, things along those lines. But it raises those questions a little bit more. A little bit more, it raises those questions. So that's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting. It's going to be worth paying attention to. Obviously, this game is important, right? And people are going to say, oh my goodness, it's the 2-14 Carolina Panthers. It's the Panthers team that literally just secured the number 1 overall pick for the Chicago Bears, which is just, that is wild in my opinion. They just got absolutely stomped out by the Jacksonville Jags, a team that the Buccaneers beat just a couple of weeks ago. Past 2 matchup, the Bucs have won, folks. I understand all of that, but chips on the table, cards down, it's still going to be a tough matchup. The only 2 times Carolina has won this year has been at home. Okay? It's the only 2 times Carolina has won this year has been at home. So it's still going to be a tough matchup anyway you look at it. Anyway you take a look. Guys are going to have to step up. Guys who didn't step up last week. Baker Mayfield is going to have to step up. Mike Evans is going to have to step up. Rachaad White is going to have to step up. These are all the guys that you need to see go out there and prove that they can be a playoff team, that they can go in there and win when they need to. Set the narrative for themselves, essentially, of, oh man, we are a team that can, look, we stumbled a little bit, but you win 5 out of your last 6 to end the year. That's still some very, very good momentum to be a team that can say, hey, look, we can still make the playoffs. We can still win games when we need to win games. And we're still a team that maybe could be sneaky, that can rebound and make a playoff game and possibly win a playoff game. There's also a lot on the line in terms of statistics. Chris Godwin is literally only 27 yards away from 1,000 yards this year. That would be awesome. Rachaad White is 85 yards away from 1,000 yards on the year. That would be awesome. First time the Bucs would have a 1,000-yard rusher since Doug Martin back in 2015. This is a team that has showcased good ability this year. I want to say that. Chase McLaughlin, 92.9% on field goals this year. Yaya Diaby, 6.5 sacks this year. Antoine Winfield Jr., Vita Vea have been making a lot of splash plays this year. This is a team that has the ability to be a playoff team when you look at the roster, right? Guys have been able to make a lot of different types of splash plays throughout the year. It's just a matter of getting the job done when you need to most. And the Bucs have showcased that, hey, they can rebound. 4-7, you go and you win 4 straight. That shows some pretty good ability to rebound, in my opinion. But we talked about this last week, where the job wasn't done against the New Orleans Saints. And now the job is especially not done against the Carolina Panthers. So you have to show that ability yet again to rebound. To show that fire that you had in that 4-game win streak. You need the same exact type of mentality. You need the same type of fire. Because all those guys want to make the playoffs. They want to be playing meaningful football in the middle of January. And that means you got to win against Carolina. You got to showcase what you had in that 4-game win streak and not what you had after the bye week where you only won 1 out of 7 games and we're at 4-7. You got to beat this Bucs team right here with the 4-game win streak, unless like this Bucs team where you only won 1 game after the bye week in your next 7 games, and then you had a 4-game win streak, which was great, and then you fell flat against the New Orleans Saints. They got to be that winning streak Bucs. They got to show that fire. Otherwise, things are probably going to get a lot murkier for the offseason, or at least you start asking a couple more questions. Maybe some things get more 50-50. Maybe some jobs aren't as secure as you once thought them to be. And that's the scenario the Bucs find themselves in, folks. It's going to be interesting. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. We'll probably be back here with a couple more live streams here on the Bleacher Report app as the month of January progresses. Again, hey, my name is James Hill. I run the YouTube channel, MrBucsNation. I'm always here on the Bleacher Report app, having a fun time talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Speaking of that, not only can you find everything about the Bucs here on the Bleacher Report app, but I'm talking about everything NFL, MLB, NBA, anything you want regarding sports, folks, you can find here on the Bleacher Report app. Again, Happy New Year to everybody. Hope everybody has a fantastic 2024. And again, thank you so much to Bleacher Report for having me on for yet another live stream. Thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. Hope y'all enjoyed. Again, my name is James Hill. And as always, folks, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream here on the Bleacher Report app. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now. Go Bucs. See you guys soon.